All right, welcome everybody to the latest Live Motocross podcast as we talk all things AMA Supercross and MXGP with the Seattle round of Supercross coming up this weekend with the great man Jason Thomas and also the legendary Stefan Everts, who is excitingly joining the podcast today. Obviously, firstly, thank you to everyone for listening and supporting the website and these podcasts. It's greatly appreciated. We'd also like to thank our sponsors for this episode in Fly Racing and Firepower. Starting with Fly Racing, obviously go check out their 2026 range, which has dropped a few months ago now, which raises the bar once again for performance and design. Built with championship proven technology, the new collection is all about control, comfort, and confidence on any track, in any conditions. Leading the charge at the Formula S, the world's first off-road smart helmet. It's a game changer and a bold statement of Fly Racing's commitment to innovation. Ready to ride? Check out the full line at flyracing.com. Visit your local dealers and follow at flyracing.global on social media. Obviously, big shout out to Firepower as well, who are teamed up with Club MX and many other heavy hitters in the industry. So be sure to check them out online and on socials too to see why they're so highly regarded. All right, firstly, welcome to you, JT. How's life? And thanks for joining us, mate. Freshly landed in Seattle. How's it all shaping up?
Yeah, things are going really well. It's actually sunny in Seattle, which, yes, you heard me correctly. It's sunny here, but everything's going great. I'm very excited and humbled to be on this podcast with Stefan. I don't need to explain to anyone on this planet, hopefully, who Stefan Everts is, and I've watched him racing for so long, and he was a little bit older than me, but getting the opportunity to go commentate some of the MXGP races for the last 9 or 10 years now. Just the legend that is Stefan Everts. His reputation precedes him, and I'm very honored to be able to speak with him today.
Absolutely. Well said, mate. And obviously, welcome to you, Stefan. Thanks for taking the time to join us on the podcast, mate. It's an absolute honor. So how's life? And cheers again for taking the time.
No, everything is fine here. I'm at the moment in Belgium, and to be honest, it's one of my first podcasts that I'm doing. So it's something new for me. I've been watching some of them. You see them lots coming by. But no, it's I was quite motivated to do this and to talk about some things. And racing is in our blood and always will be. And it doesn't get out, so it's always fun to talk about it.
Oh, absolutely. It's going to be exceptional to have a chat all things Supercross and MXGP with you, mate. And JT, we'll start with you about Seattle Supercross. How's it going to be looking? What's the track build looking like? Obviously, all the delays surrounding that. The weather could be an issue. So they've definitely got a task ahead of them, the track crew there, mate. No press day, I'd imagine, but it's definitely going to be an interesting weekend, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a challenge, and I realize for those not inside the domestic, America here, Super Bowl is a very big deal. Think about whether it's World Cup or something. It's on all those levels, especially for Americans. And the Super Bowl was here in this stadium. Well, it wasn't here, but the winning team is based here in Seattle, inside that stadium. So there was celebration here all week, which wrapped up yesterday, which is Wednesday. And so basically what happens is nothing can happen as far as Monster Energy Supercross goes until that is completed. So everyone was in a holding pattern. Every bit of the track crew, the dirt, the dirt, bringing the dirt in is one of the biggest challenges and takes the longest time. So they couldn't even start that until Wednesday night. So that puts them at least 2 full days behind schedule. So yes, to your point, they'll cancel press day. They'll be building the track all the way up until we go racing on Saturday. So it's one of the most unique situations for a race that I've ever seen, because typically if you told them this was the time frame, they would say that, that's not possible, but this is the situation. This is what we have to do. So they're going to figure out a way to do it. But I do think it'll look a little bit different. I think the track will be a little bit more tame, both because of the weather. Because remember, when they bring this dirt in, if it's raining, it's going to rain on the dirt. But typically they would have it covered and they would work around any sort of weather to get the dirt in to make sure they can protect it at all costs. They simply don't have that luxury. They just have to move the dirt, rain or shine. So it is a little bit more vulnerable. But yes, the stadium situation with the Super Bowl has been a big challenge. And me working on the broadcast team, I get to see and hear all the things behind the scenes. It's not an enviable situation for those guys this week, but I'm sure they'll pull it off. That's what they do. And I think when people tune in around the world, they probably will have no idea, which is the goal. You never, if you can execute without anyone having any clue that there was such a challenge, then you've done your job. But it's going to be a heroic effort to make that happen.
Hey, JT, a question. Is that still the same stadium as back from 92?
No. So you were in the Kingdom. So that was,
Yeah.
maybe 45 minutes to an hour south. They actually tore that stadium down and they built a brand new one. The interesting thing is it doesn't have a roof. So, the weather in Seattle's not so good. And
It's more like Belgium than more rainy.
Yeah, for sure. But they built it to have an advantage because they knew if they could acclimate themselves and prepare for the bad weather all the time, they would have a big advantage for the home games. And so every year at this race, it's mud and rain and difficult conditions. So probably be the same on Saturday.
And obviously you mentioned it there, JT, and Stefan, you raced the 92 Seattle Supercross, Stefan. So any sort of recollections of that, mate? Reflections? Because you're definitely an extremely accomplished Supercross racer as well.
Yeah, it was. It's still in my memory as it was yesterday. It was a six Supercrosses I did back in 92 as a preparation for the 92 250 World Championship. And actually, my plan was to get world champion in 92 and then move to US and start doing Supercross. Because back in those days, we had a lot of Supercrosses during the winter through Paris, in Spain, Finland, Sweden. I mean, Germany, everywhere we had Supercrosses back then. And I was full on Supercross. But my plan didn't work. I got injured in 92 and I stayed in 93 and stayed in 94 and 95 and then finally I decided to stay in Europe. But I had a good time in US and Seattle. I remember I think Bradshaw was winning. He was on a winning streak back then, but Stanton still win the championship at the end. It was exciting to be there for sure.
Yeah, it's absolutely incredible stuff, mate. It worked out extremely well for you anyway, mate, with all you achieved in the sport. And obviously Seattle, JT, it wouldn't usually be this early, would it, mate? It's obviously the World Cup. I write about soccer as another section of my job. So that obviously had an impact, the World Cup coming up, as to why it's so early, because it's not ideal having Seattle in February, is it?
No, it's not. And it's just what you deal with. I don't think anybody was thrilled when we saw the calendar and had Seattle in February. It's typically, April is ideal. But yeah, it's World Cup. And, that was the same situation with the Northeast. We went through this Northeast swing a year ago because we knew if we didn't go last year in 2025, it wouldn't be available in 2026 because of all of the qualifying that would go on this year in 2026. So it's just one of those things where, accommodations have to be made. No one's super excited about it, but so far it's Thursday. We have blue skies right now, so I'm gonna be optimistic and hope that it all works out. But it is a very scary proposition on paper because it could snow, no problem. It could be snowing on Saturday, and it's not going to. But like a month from now, you told me it was snowing here. That is not even something that would surprise anyone. So we might be getting very, very lucky, even though everybody, including myself, and I want to qualify this. It's going to be cold. So for those of you who are looking on a Celsius scale, it's probably going to be something like 3 to 4 degrees on Saturday evening. It's going to be chilly. Yeah, for sure. But as long as it's not raining, I think everybody will be okay with the cold. The real worry was rain and cold and snow on top of the cold. So I think we're going to be okay in the end.
I think for the riders, it's not so bad, but more for the spectators to
for
sit
sure.
on your chair and be there for an hour and a half and sit still. I think it's more cold.
Yeah, me too. What about me? I'm going to be freezing. I always,
but you're in full action, with the commentating.
I'm working also. Yeah, it's funny. Speak to the riders, and I'm many races. I'm so cold standing there. And the riders are sweating so bad. And I know that, like any racer knows that feeling where you don't feel the cold at all. You're your heart rate is up and your body temperature's up. And I'm shaking because I'm so cold, trying to like hold the microphone in my hand. But it's probably going to be a little bit of that on Saturday. The riders will be fine, but everybody else will be suffering.
Yeah, the series has been absolutely excellent so far, and we'll get to some riders now. You know, we've got to start with Ken Roczen, absolutely brilliant race win. He's usually strong at Glendale, like we spoke about last week, JT, but such a superb rider on all surfaces with his diverse skill set, the speed, the technique. Stefan, you obviously know him well also, mate, but yeah, really impressive how he managed that race and he didn't drop, you know, the intensity or the speed. He had some really great staying power. Hunter couldn't catch him, but it's cool to see this momentum that he's got rolling, isn't it, JT? Because he's another guy in the title fight now, and you have some great interviews with him and you get along well with him on those podium chats, mate. But he's just sort of finding a really nice rhythm at the moment, so long may that continue. So start with you, JT, then Stefan, thoughts on Roczen?
Yeah, you could see this win brewing. You know, go all the way back to A1. He was on the pace. He had intensity. He really didn't let Tomac get away at all. And you could make an argument, had the roles been reversed, he could have very well won the opening round. You know, San Diego, he's on the podium. I think he regrets a few things there. He kind of let Hunter back by and lost his intensity a bit. And then go to Houston and he wins that first race of the Triple Crown. And had that been a full main event, he easily wins that first main event. Follows that up in Glendale with an actual main event win. So this was telegraphed. This wasn't a surprise to see him win. And kind of behind the scenes, you know, speaking with Ricky Carmichael and James Stewart and other people, we were all saying like a win is coming. You could just see it coming. It was just needed the right situation, the right circumstances, and he got exactly that. And if you let him get out front and get comfortable with a reasonable gap, he's almost impossible to deal with because he has so much experience in that situation. Really, the key with Roczen is you have to stay with him in the first 10 minutes. Like you have to stay, if you can stay locked into his rear wheel, which Cooper Webb is the master of this, if you can just hang in there and withstand all of the intensity that he throws at you in the first 10 minutes, the second half of the race, I don't want to say it's easy because I certainly couldn't do it. But for those guys, the job gets a lot easier in the second half because they don't have this burst of energy anymore to deal with from Roczen. It just becomes more of like, okay, I've sussed him out now. I know exactly what he has. And now I'll try to take advantage of him in the last few laps, whereas typically he's a little bit more vulnerable.
Mm-hmm. My thoughts is a bit, I think the big advantage Ken has is his first 3-4 laps. He's very explosive. And if he can maintain his rhythm and his speed with small mistakes or no mistakes, then he's a winner. He is one of the most talented riders that I've seen in the past decades. And I think he should have won already a championship a long time ago, but it didn't seem to work out for him with his, I don't know if you can call it the illness, but with his energy level, he struggled. He told me he was struggling with. I don't know the details of it, but looks like he's overcome it, and he looks more strong every race. And I think he can be a serious title contender. He keeps up the good starts. That's of course the starting point of everything. That's a good start. If you see Tomac last weekend, yeah, he blew it in the start, and but Ken, no, he's really in the title chase for sure.
Yeah, I think the one thing with Kenny, and it just seems to be consistent from, you know, the surgeries that he had and so much trauma to his body took a toll. And it just seems when he has a lot of travel combined with the training and the racing for months, consecutive months, it really starts to deteriorate him. And he runs into the energy problems that you mentioned. He finds himself getting sick more often than other people. He has, immune system problems that just start to deteriorate his performance a bit. So that's what I'll be watching for is, you know, after Daytona, when we get into March and April, can he maintain this, you know, this level of performance? Because that has been a real problem for him to be able to do.
But with the experience that Ken has, I think on the weekends that he's struggling with that, he should be the smartest rider out there and still perform, maybe not as a winner or a top three, but to get your points done, and then that should lead you to the championship. For sure, Ken should know and be able to do this.
Yep. Yep. That's wise for sure. Yeah. I think the key will be, can he, on those nights that we're talking about where things are not great, he's not feeling well, he can just feel himself being a little off. Can he get a fourth and not get an eighth? Those are going to be the keys, right? It seems like a small thing, but you throw a couple of weekends together where you give up 6 or 8 points more than you should have, and you find yourself on the outside of the championship pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said. And one man that's been extremely consistent so far is Hunter Lawrence. He's obviously carrying the red plate. 4 straight second place finishes. Surely the win's coming soon, but he just keeps banking those points and being consistent. You got to say he's a title contender at this point for sure. It's still early days, but both of you guys know their journeys, the Lawrence brothers, Hunter and Jett, so well. And you mentioned on your podcast, JT, the industry seating one, just how he should just enjoy these moments, because you sort of see what happens post-race with these guys, the emotions they go through, and they're pretty hard on themselves, and he certainly is, always determined to get the next result and to keep pushing, but just take a moment to enjoy it for his perspective too. So firstly, JT, your take on Hunter?
Yeah, I mean, Hunter is, he's taken such huge steps, and I was fairly critical of Hunter early on in his 250 Supercross career, because I just didn't see things going really well. He was having a really difficult time. He couldn't stay healthy. He wasn't qualifying for main events. Think about where he's at now in 2026. He wasn't able, but he was missing 250 main events, like not qualifying. In that light and in that moment, I was like, I don't know that this is going to work, because his shoulder doesn't seem to be stable. He's having real issues staying healthy with the shoulder. And his performance when he is healthy is not indicative of a guy who's going to take the next step. So I was concerned, not that, of course it didn't matter to me, but just on an analysis level, I was concerned about where this was headed for Hunter. And to see him progress, goes on to win the 2022 championship, moves to the 450 immediately, becomes impactful in the 450 fight. Now he's, for the first time ever, has the red plate in Monster Energy Supercross. Like, it has been a methodical, steady progression of excellence. Like, I don't know that I've ever seen anything like it, where he's taken steps like this. And I bring this up a lot because if you go back to 2017, 2018, when he was racing MX2, and of course Stefan has a lot of insight on this, but he had a lot of promise, he had a lot of potential, but he wasn't winning everything. I think his best finish in the championship was 7th. It wasn't any sort of certainty that he was going to be wildly successful. And yet 10 years on, here we are, and he's leading, one of the biggest championships in the world. So I have so much respect for his ability to overcome all of those challenges, never really take his eye off of the goal. And I mean, he has done what most people could not, which is come from seeming obscurity and dare I say it, mediocrity at times, to now he's at the top tier of the sport. Like, you have to put his name along every other top name. He's literally leading the championship. So my respect level is through the roof for Hunter Lawrence.
I think also for Hunter, it's of course not so easy to have a younger brother, and that is already become a multi-champion in motocross and supercross, and he kind of got beaten by his little brother. He's been in the shadow for a lot of the time, and still staying so positive to the world outside, and staying so motivated, for me is also a big respect. Not a lot of guys can do that like Hunter is doing. That is very professional. Also, the big surplus that he has, he can train with the best guy out there, and that's Jett Lawrence. So he could really step up his game, and that is what he's been doing. I still think he's missing like 2 or 3% to really knock it down in some races where he feels it, and then he needs to go and win the race to show that he's that bit extra. And Hunter has been there for a lot of years, but he's never been jumping out of it, like Jett has been doing. He just jumped out of the whole pack and you say, wow. And Hunter he's been in the pack. He's been very consistent, riding really nice, super, but he just needs to get that little extra percentage, my opinion, to really be that champ. Of course, if he can continue to stay so consistent like he's doing right now, then he's for sure going to be one of the main guys to win the championship.
You have a question for you on that. You have a question. So my perception is when I watch him, he's doing everything right, but the little bit of intensity, just that extra 2 or 3%, like you mentioned, he seems so analytical with everything he does. Every decision is calculated. Everything is kind of sorted before he does it. Do you think to become that champion, do you think he'll have to take a little bit more risk? Like maybe push a little bit outside of his comfort zone, because it seems that he's very much like within a range and he doesn't want to step out of that whatsoever.
Yeah, in a way, yes. I wouldn't say take more risk, but I would say to learn to race a little bit more against where the level is of where you start to go into the risk. Just go a little bit more closer to the border of going over. Hunter, when he races, he looks always nice and smooth and clean, and he doesn't make a lot of mistakes. He just needs to be a little bit more I wouldn't say aggressive, but have a little bit more attitude. But he doesn't. And some riders are like that, I was also that type of guy that you wouldn't see me do crazy things. I was looking slow and smooth, and my dad used to tell me, you have to rev it more, you have to be more aggressive, you have to do this, you have to do that. And I was like, Dad, it's my style, that's the way I am. And I think it's a bit like Hunter. He's also that, he has that style, he will never be like Deegan, he looks super aggressive on the bike, but we will never see Hunter Lawrence do that. That's not his style. But I still believe he can add those 2-3 seconds that we won't see it like this way, but he just makes that little bit of difference, what he needs to try and do.
Yeah, it's super interesting. And obviously, while we're talking about the Lawrence brothers, we'll get your take on Jett, both of you. Maybe start with Stefan. Obviously, what makes him so special in your eyes? We wax lyrical about it, JT and I, just how he keeps sort of surprising us with the levels he can go to and the things that he can do on the bike. Obviously, being out injured again this season is pretty tough for him mentally as well. But just your take on all things Jett Lawrence and just why he's such a phenom.
Well, it's hard to say. I mean, it's easy to say, but when I discovered the Lawrence brothers back in Europe, I saw Hunter for the first time in Valkenswaard, and he was, I think, 5th or 6th, and I said, this kid can ride a bike, he's talented. And then everyone will start talking about his little brother Jett, and I saw Jett some weeks later in Lommel on the 85 Kawasaki in Lommel, and the heavy sand was wet. And I mean, the first impression was not super of Jett back then, but then later on it starts coming in more and more. And we had a lot of talks, and Jett was already from a young age talking a lot, when he did the practice with Liam and he went out riding, and he came back and he started to explain me everything from A to Z and this and that. And so we saw Jett developing really fast when he went to the EMX. Then they moved to US. But incredible how fast he developed, It looked like that he kind of came out of himself. Like there was this talented boy inside of him that we never really seen that much. But then he came in US and he started to do his thing, and he was happy, and he just kind of popped out of himself and be this great champion. That was very impressive for me to see.
Would you like to carry that on, JT? We're obviously looking particularly forward to that Pro Motocross opener where you'll have Prado on the KTM, Jett recovered from injury, and Deegan on the 450. That might break some TV records, I think, that one.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting. And, Jett, the kid's so talented, Stefan's speaking about his performances on an EMX. The first time I saw him was at Ottabiano in 2018. And, he just smoked everybody. And back then EMX had adults, there were riders that were 30 years old out there racing and with lots of experience. And were they winning MX2? No, of course not. That's why they were in EMX. But they were experienced, they were professionals, and he was 20 seconds ahead of them. Absolutely gone. On Suzuki days, I didn't know much. I didn't even know who it was, to be completely honest. I knew who Hunter was, of course, but I didn't know. I had heard of Jett's name before, but I had no idea that this was Jett Lawrence. It was wildly impressive to watch. And ever since then, I was just like, that kid is going to do something in the sport, because that is just so abnormal at 14 years old to beat riders of that caliber. Like, that doesn't happen. That simply does not happen in this sport at that age, to decimate riders like that in the sand. Because sand is, as Stefan knows more than most humans on the planet, sand really separates people. It is such a challenge to go fast in the sand, and it takes strength and it takes racecraft, and your mind and body both have to be working together to go fast in the sand. You really can't. It can't be an accident to be successful in the sand. And there's this kid just long gone from these experienced professionals. Again, it's something that I'll never forget. As long as I had dinner with Hunter and Dazzy 2 weeks ago, and I told them both, that was my first interaction with Jett Lawrence. And ever since that moment, I've never forgotten, and it's always left an impression on me, because I know what I was watching. I know how difficult it is to do at any age what he was doing, let alone at 14 years old. I just imagine nobody expects him to do anything, and he goes out there and wins by a large margin. I don't know if you remember that or not, Stefan, that race, but I know that I'll never forget.
I don't remember. Ottabiano, but I remember in Assen, he also did a really great performance. It was the last race of the season. I think he also won that EMX race. But I've seen also Jorge Prado do that, and I've seen Ken Roczen do that, and I've seen Jeffrey Hellings do that on a young age. So yeah, he was not the only one that I've seen, to be honest.
Yeah, it was just I think for me, Jeffrey, there was such a following of Jeffrey from 85s, Ken Roczen the same. I had never even heard really of Jett. I didn't know much about him. It was such a surprise for me, because typically you see this type of thing coming. You can see, like an Adam Cincerillo or a Michael Lessie, when they're on 65s, they're winning everything. Like, they never lose a race, and Jett had won the world championship, but especially for an American, this was news to me. I was like, who is that and how is that happening? It was just a remarkable moment. So anyway, yeah, I'm sure being more accustomed to seeing things like that, it wasn't such a shock, but it was shocking for me, I can promise you.
Yeah, that's great insight. Awesome stories there for sure. And as we move down the list, we'll talk about Cooper Webb, just a smart, consistent ride to bank another podium. Heading in, JT, we spoke how he's not traditionally too great at Glendale, but we always know with him you can never ride him off. So that was a pretty solid effort. Take the points and, bring some positives to the next round. You mentioned that, Chad Reed was so good at extracting positives from the weekends and then moving on. So any way you can do it, you sort of take that chance. And I think you summed it up perfectly, JT, in your Race Rex column when you said the longer he lurks, the more dangerous he becomes for this title. So firstly, you on Webb, JT, then Stefan.
Yeah, so Webb is, he's a racer to his core. He epitomizes what it takes, I believe, to win championships, because mentally he is so tough and he has so much tenacity that he doesn't wilts under pressure. The pressure only makes him kind of better. And the more challenging things get, typically the better he's going to be. And that's a very stark contrast to some riders. When things get really difficult, when there's too much pressure, when the situation just looks too bleak, their performance goes down. They really struggle to focus and harness their best effort. And Cooper Webb doesn't do that. You watch him and he doesn't have the whoop speed. He doesn't have this beautiful riding style the way that Roczen does or Jett does, but he finds ways to still be successful. And that, to me, that's what's the most impressive about Cooper, is that mentally he's able to say, I don't care what anything else. I don't care what anybody else says. I don't care that everyone tells me that I can't be successful at Glendale. Great. The result says that I'm going to be sixth. Last year it was seventh at this race. I simply don't care, because I'm going to overcome all of that. Somehow I'm going to find a way to make this work, regardless of what anybody else thinks. And that I have a lot of respect for that. And when I say I have respect for things like Hunter, his ability to kind of come from nowhere, the reasons for the respect are different, right? Like when I watch Cooper Webb ride, I'm not like, oh, wow, I respect his ability so much. That's not really it for me. I can find several other riders, Chase Sexton and Roczen and Jett and a lot of other things I like technique-wise that they do better. But the mental aspect for Webb, where he's able to just push everything else out of his mind and focus on what truly matters for 21 minutes on Saturday night, to me, that is remarkable. And it's so cliche, but it's the mind of a champion. Like, he is able to harness his best effort when he really needs to. And you see that from guys time after time after time. The guys that are best under pressure, it's really consistent. Like it doesn't really change. Look at Kobe Bryant in basketball. Those guys, when it's, Tom Brady in football, whoever, Lionel Messi in, soccer, football, when the lights are the brightest, that is when you're going to get their best stuff always. Like there's without fail, that's when they're going to be their best self. And I think Cooper Webb is that same guy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it looks like that Cooper, it's not the first year that he has a slow start of the season, but I think those are one of the dangerous guys, especially Cooper. He's a multi-champion, and he's not the most technical, like you said, JT, rider, but I think definitely he's the strongest in the head. I think it looks like he's growing every weekend stronger in his mind, and those are the dangerous ones, because if you see Tomac, he had a super start, winning the first two rounds, and then he just got knocked off now. So he's dropping back, and to get back in his confidence and all that, it's more hard. I think for Cooper, starting slow, being a bit the underdog, and just building it up throughout the season. There's still a lot of racing coming up. I prefer more that way than to have a really fast start. From my personal experience, the years that I had the super starts and winning the first 2-3 GPs, I would drop back. I think it's a pattern that you see many times. If you have a fast start, you somewhere will drop back. It's better to have a slow start and just build it up. And actually, on the last round, the last checkered flag, that's where you win the championship, and not before. So that's something that Cooper can do really well. And he's a big champion. Things like this in the situation he is, I think, is the challenges that he adores and he likes, to overcome those challenges and, fight against those challenges and overcome them and win them. That for me personally was also very interesting in my racing period, just the challenges, That's what you need. Everyone needs that to be motivated and to keep going and racing. But Cooper has a really strong head. That's his strongest point. To compare with Ken or Prado or Jett, they are the super talented boys. But Cooper, you can link him a bit like Joel Smets. For me, he was also not the most talented rider, but he was very strong in his head, and physically he was also super strong. So I knew I had to beat him on those parts and not on the technical parts.
Yeah, that's absolutely fascinating. And that sort of is a nice shift. We can talk about Chase Sexton now, who, is a bit of a head scratching weekend again for him. Well, two in a row, really. He's gone fifth and seventh since that A2 win. We would have expected him to keep rolling with the podiums from then on, but things have sort of spiraled. He's clearly struggling with the bike. It's all a bit confusing, really, at the moment, this little downturn, JT. So firstly, your take on him. Is there anything in it with the Kawasaki being underwhelming? What do you think? Have you hit the panic button yet?
Oh, it's getting difficult to not. Um, you just wonder what's going on in the mind of Chase Sexton, because there's a lot of testing going on for sure. Okay, so that's definitely been the story with Chase Sexton since the jump, is that he constantly is looking for a better setting, a better way to do things. And I just think he gets lost in his own head with that stuff, right? He doesn't trust that he is talented enough to kind of overcome whatever the bike may be doing. And that's one of the, I think, most underrated aspects of racing, is that everybody's dealing with bike stuff. Always. Like, you're always dealing with something with the motorcycle that's not perfect. It doesn't matter if you're on factory Honda in 2023, like he was, Red Bull KTM in 24 and 25, or Monster Energy Kawasaki in 26. There's always going to be something about your particular motorcycle that's not perfect. And are other bikes better than others? Sure. But he's been in the same situation 3 times now, where he doesn't seem happy. He's complaining about certain things. Like right now, he is claiming that the bike won't turn. And so they're throwing everything at this motorcycle right now to try to get it to turn for him. I personally believe that a lot of it is mental, right? Like, if he would just trust himself more and say, you know what, the bike's not perfect. It's probably not going to be perfect, but you know what? I'm going to do really well anyway, because guess what? Everybody's bike's not perfect, and I'm going to be better than them. We're all dealing with something, and I'm going to prove that I'm simply better than they are, because we're all on equal footing on some level. And he knows what Prado and Tomac are on, because he was on it last year. He knows, like, he should be able to look and say, well, I know what they have, and it's not anything special. I know what my bike is, and this is the bike I chose. So I'm just going to go beat those guys. And you see it on the weekends where he has it all together. Like Anaheim 2, he wins relatively easily. And then you have to think that it's mental on these other weekends, because I watched every lap he was on the racetrack in Glendale. Didn't qualify well, didn't have a great heat race, and started poorly in the main and couldn't move forward. I mean, an uninspired 7th for Chase Sexton. Honestly, like, this isn't, I have no bearing, but for me, it's unacceptable. Like, he is too good of a rider and too talented to be riding around in 7th place and unable to move forward. So maybe that's being too harsh on him, but I'm only being harsh because I know what he's capable of. If I didn't think he was one of the best racers talent-wise in the world, I wouldn't ask so much of him. I would just be like, yeah, he's doing great. Top 10, good job. You multi-time champion, like, you've done a great job. It's simply because when I watch him ride, he can do things that other people can't do and will never be able to do. So that in and of itself says you should be doing better than 7th place. Jorge Prado is in like his 12th Supercross ever, and you could not catch him no matter what. You couldn't catch him. Jorge Prado is a fantastic racer, but Chase Sexton's experience alone, and if you're going to say they're equal, his experience alone, you would think he would be able to close the gap down, and he always has been able to. That ride at Glendale was maybe not his worst on paper. I know he got 7th or 8th at the opener. That was his worst performance of the season for me, because he had no speed, he had no pace, he had no intensity. He looked uninterested in the main event. Again, maybe I'm being too harsh, but that's what I saw, and I'm not gonna shy away from saying it. He just looked like he was completely uninspired.
I have to fully agree on that, what you say, GT, because he's a very super talented rider, and they are focusing on things that they shouldn't be focusing on, and that's testing a lot. The more you test, the more difficult you make it for yourself, because you're gonna make it more complicated, especially for your mind. What to choose, what to do, which way, what direction. He just needs to fall back to his riding. He's so talented. That's the base of it. Always go back to your riding and having fun. When you enjoy riding, when you have fun on your motorcycle, then you can also perform. I mean, changing the bike constantly, you don't know what the bike is doing. Back in my days, when I tested and I was happy, I kept always the same setup. I never changed. Maybe 1 or 2 clicks on the suspension according to the track, but overall my bike was always the same. So I knew what it was going to do everywhere. And there are, like you say, GT, there are parts on the track that the bike doesn't work. You cannot get the bike tuned in that the bike is 100% feeling great on all the track. There's always sections that the bike can be better. But if you keep testing and finding that right setup, that you have a complete full bike, it doesn't exist. Because next week you go to another track and you're going to have the same problem. So, yeah, the situation of Sexton is of course the baggage he got from the luggage he got from the whole Prado story from last year, and now going back to KTM, and it's of course also a bit of influence, my opinion. Also maybe building up a bit more pressure to Sexton that, yeah, the bike is good enough, and I believe that the bike is good enough. Kawasaki was world champion last year in MXGP. Okay, motocross or supercross is completely different. I know that, but still, it's not a bad bike, and for sure Sexton can do better than in 7th place from last weekend. He was riding with no intensity. He was just finishing off his race and nothing more. So he needs to find back his fun in racing, I think, also.
Yeah, so I'm not sure if you heard this, Stefan, but I want to just tell you and get your thoughts really quickly. So you do all your testing, right? Like starting in October, he was testing October, November, December. You know this process really well. You go through every possible situation, every setup, every combination. That's what testing involves in the off season. So you understand the opportunity really well about what's available, what works best. They went through the whole process. They come to A1. They're happy with everything. You have so much time put into this setup that you have confidence in it. Okay. He does that, races Anaheim. Immediately after Anaheim, he takes everything off the motorcycle and switches to pro circuit. He rides Levi Kitchen's bike and says, I'm switching to everything to that. Switches the fork, switches the triple clamps, switches the swing arm, switches the shock to the pro circuit. All of it is completely different on Tuesday. And then he races the next weekend with it. Like, that is what we're dealing with. The wild swing of everything that we worked on for 2.5 months. I don't want that anymore. I'm going to this pro circuit setup that's not even factory Kawasaki anymore. It's not even the same technicians building the suspension anymore. Not even our work triple clamps anymore. We're going to run all of this other aftermarket product. Like that is how wild the changes are that are going on over there from week to week.
Well, I think that's confidence, There's not a lot of confidence in the whole system there that you change like that. I can't say more than that. It's just
crazy. I just wanted to share with you because that's not typical behavior. Like, you could change some things. Okay, we need to make some adjustments, but every small change changes something else. You change the forks, that's going to have a change on the shock. So you have to be really mindful of changing one thing because that's going to have an effect on everything else, the way the bike works in every other situation. He just changed everything all at once. Change the fork, change the shock, change the triple clamps, change the swing arm. And now, like, I have to imagine someone at Kawasaki is going, what can we just go one step at a time? Can we just try some things? Like, it is, I don't know that I've ever seen anything like it. It's remarkable.
Yeah, difficult situation to get that back on track, but he should not doubt himself. That's something in the worst position you're at. That's what I've done in my weak days, and my worst days, is to believe in myself, what I could do on a motorcycle, what I've proven to myself in the past. That's something you should not. He should not doubt about this, and go back to that confidence and build it up from there. And if you've been testing and been riding a motorcycle for more than 2 months, then you should not just flick it over and ride a complete other bike. Then you should stay with that and have confidence in that. And sooner or later the day will come that you bring it together. And maybe by luck he did it in the second round, that all things fall together with a complete different bike. I didn't know this story, so
it's amazing. It's amazing to change so much. Like, not even your own team components.
So basically, in that case, you can ride one weekend a Ducati and the next weekend Suzuki, and then a Honda. Doesn't matter for Chase.
Yeah, and it's still ongoing. They're still testing every day right now. They're testing everything every day. Most guys right now, maybe some testing, but they're getting into the flow of the season now and trying to, it's maintenance, refining your craft and your skill and working on small things. They are still every day changing everything on the motorcycle day in and day out, which is just, it's the same story. Ed, we've been talking about this for 2 or 3 years now. It's been the same thing on each team over and over and over. And he has to figure out, I think this is my opinion, he's got to start looking at himself a little bit and say, the bike is fine. Like, find something that works reasonably well, and the rest of it is just going to be me. And guess what? I am good enough. Like, I am more than good enough to run at the front. And I haven't seen that happen with him yet. And I don't know at this point if we're going to get there.
I have this story from back in the day when Honda changed from steel frame to the aluminum frame, is when Jeremy McGrath changed to Suzuki 2 weeks before the season started. And I was going to ride the World Championship 250 on that new aluminum chassis frame, and I also struggled with that bike. It was very hard to go into turns, to do the braking bumps. It would always push me forward, and it was very rigid. Yeah. But I said to myself, listen, or I'm going to make it hard on myself, or I'm going to accept the motorcycle how it is, and I'm going to adapt myself to the bike, how it's going. And that's what I did after 4 or 5 GPs. I figured out the way to ride that thing, and I got world champion at the end of the year. So, at one point you have to say that's how it is. And you have to sometimes adapt yourself as a rider to a motorcycle, and it's not always the other way around. I see some riders working like this, testing, and they will never get it done like they wish to have it, But then it's you who have to compensate sometimes, you as a rider.
Yeah, it's just the last thing I'll say is that the key is that he has, just like you did in 97, he has the talent to do this, right? If he was less talented or he was incapable, we wouldn't be talking about this. We would say, it's going to be tough. It's really difficult. The field is really deep, but his ability is the reason that we talk about testing too much, and he has to look at himself. So it's always like, because I hear people like, oh, you're too hard on Sexton. Well, I'm hard on Sexton because I see what he's capable of. If I didn't know what he was capable of, I would be much easier on him. But this is one of the most talented racers I've ever seen, ever. The things he can do on a motorcycle, most people will never dream about doing. And he is in his own way so much of the time. I have no vested interest in it at all. And I'm still frustrated watching him because I can see how much he's holding himself back.
Yeah, and I guess you mentioned Prado there. It's in stark contrast, him with the KTM and Tomac for that matter. They're so happy with that team and that environment, the framework, the relationship's strong. And, fastest qualifier, heat race win, fifth in the main. Things are going really well for Prado. See, he's looking good in the whoops, all the sections. He's handling very comfortably. So definitely vindication for pushing through that switch to KTM. Things are looking really good for him. And, it looks like it's going to continue, doesn't it, JT? Firstly, then Stefan.
Yeah, this is one of the most remarkable turnarounds I've ever seen. And I have apologized to him on this show. I've apologized other places. Last year, I was pretty hard on him, but it's not so different than I am with Sexton, as I've watched him race for too long. I know what he's capable of. And Supercross, it's fine. I wasn't worried about his results last year. If he was getting 8th or 10th, I didn't care so much. But his performance and his effort, more importantly, in motocross last year was completely unacceptable. There were moments where, and I will never back away from this, I watched him not try. I watched him not give effort. I watched him basically quit without pulling off the racetrack. Like, he was still circulating, but he had quit in the race. And I can't condone that. He is too good for what I saw last summer. But this is the guy that I watched win EMX, MX2, and MXGP. This is the guy where I was out front of, like on the television team, I was saying, like, this guy's going to be legit, because they didn't know much about him. Okay, he comes with a big resume, but is he going to really battle Jett and Tomac? And I was saying yes. In motocross, yes, he is going to do that. This is that rider, right? Supercross is not his specialty. And look how well he's doing. He had the fastest segment time in the whoops. He won the heat race again. He is absolutely performing in 2026. And I think going into the summer, he's going to be in the fight. And I can't wait for it. And so I want to reiterate it. I apologize for the things I said a year ago, but I still mean them. When I say he wasn't trying, I don't think he was trying. And now we're seeing what he's truly capable of.
Yeah, for me, it's also a bit of a mystery what all happened last year with Jorge. Looked like he had a pretty good winter until he got injured some weeks before the first Supercross, and then he came in. I think he kind of lost his confidence. He got injured again really fast, but the Nationals, he should have been racing up front. But yeah, the results that were every weekend, they got worse and worse. Never seen that from Jorge. But to be honest, I never lost confidence in him. Of course, how it all went, going away from KTM and now back to KTM is a bit of a strange story. But yeah, it works. It works for him that we can see right now. And I think before the end of the season, I think Jorge will win a Supercross, in my opinion. We haven't seen his whole shots yet. We just seen a few, but in the MXGP, he was ripping the whole shots like 9 from 10 starts. He's the Mr. Whole Shot guy, and I think when he starts to do that in Supercross, I think he will be a lot in the front, and he's learning fast. You see that he's making slowly his progress. Having that first podium and the first Supercross was maybe a bit of a lucky shot, but he still did it, and it was a good confidence boost for him. And yeah, also what GT says, for the Nationals, it's going to be fireworks, to see him race against Jett. So that's going to be very, very interesting. But I'm still watching him and waiting to see him win his first Supercross this year. I think he can do that.
Yeah, if you told me that a year ago, I would have said you were crazy. But now I'm there. I think it's going to take the right situation. He's going to need to get the start. And I think a guy like, Sexton or Tomac or Roczen, somebody can't be right behind him early. But if they let him on a track where he's comfortable get a lead, that is what he does well. He manages leads incredibly well. It's what he's done his whole life. He's always gotten good starts. So him being at the front with a lead is going to be that to me will be the setup that he's looking for to win. And it's imagine the shock around the world when he wins. Like it's going to be less shocking now, but if we just woke up, like we went to sleep in 2025 and woke up in 2026 the night he wins at Supercross, I'm not sure how much more shocking that could be of a result.
No, I believe he can do it. And yeah, like you say, when he's in the lead, and that's his specialty, you know, taking the all shots and just be in the lead and make no mistakes, keep going, keep the pace high, no mistakes. And he's very, very good in that. I haven't seen Jorge pass 100 riders in his career because he was always having the all shot since he was a little kid, you know. I watched him the first time on the 65s and I immediately saw him. That's a great talent, you know. It's a kid that you don't need to teach him or learn him a lot. It's like Jett. It's like Ken Roczen. It's like Jeff Herlings. You know, those are kids that you don't need to teach them anything. It's you have to teach them different things, but not the racing part. They are so natural talented that it's just all in there. They just see with their eyes from other riders what they do, they copy, they do new things. They are just special guys, yeah.
Yeah, it's fascinating to watch, isn't it? And as we sort of wrap up, coming towards the end here, we've got to talk a little bit of MXGP. Obviously, we'd love to get your thoughts. Firstly, Stefan, we'll start with Hurling's moving to Honda. Guys are going to Yamaha. Just your takeaways from those big off-season switches, mate. It's going to make MXGP even more fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah, it's going to be one of the most fascinating years since a couple of years. And not only Tim and Jeffrey who is changing brands, but we also have Adamo and Guy the Wolf stepping in the MXGP class, you know. Who am I missing? There's one more kid.
Beniston?
Beniston. So, you know, it's going to be a good class for sure. And with Koene being so fast and winning so many GPs last year, being really close for the title, you know, he wants his title, you know, he's gonna be the one to beat. Romain winning the title is gonna boost his confidence. He's looking already quite solid. So no, it's gonna be very, very interesting year. That's for sure.
Yeah, I can't wait. I think it's probably the deepest MXGP lineup that I've seen in a long time. I just felt like it was kind of going the wrong direction. You had a lot of riders either injured or had left MXGP to go to America. So it was kind of in this strange area where there wasn't as much depth. This year is going to be the return of that depth. You have so many guys that can win. Tim back, Jeffrey back, Lucas Koenen has arrived. Some of the younger guys are moving in. We'll see how Andrea does in that class. Roman is still there as the defending world champion. So I just think it's going to be one of those renaissance years in MXGP if everyone can stay healthy, where we have different winners. We have a lot of parity at the top, where it just hasn't felt that way for a little while. It was just like maybe there was a good battle at the front, but then like the fight for 4, 5, 6, 7 wasn't as good. I think the fight all the way through the first 5 or 6, we could have that crazy racing. And that's not even mentioning guys like Renault that we know if he's healthy and everything's good, he can be in the fight. There's just a lot of guys, I think, that are looking at this year as their year to win. And we know there can only be one. So I could not be more excited about the setup for 2026 in MXGP.
We was missing Vial also stepping in. So
yeah,
back from US.
How do you think that's going to go? I'm curious on Vial how he'll do.
I don't know. It's hard to say. You know, for the moment he doesn't look so spectacular yet on the 450. But when he moved into MX2 GPs, he wasn't also actually a guy who was not really. We didn't expect him to go and win this championship, you know. He was good, but not super good. And then he's a 2-time world champion in MX2, so very surprising how he stepped it up. So who knows, he's gonna maybe do the same in the MXGP class. But Tim looks strong in Mantova. on the Yamaha. He's looking quite good. For me,
He did
Jeffrey,
look good.
I don't
Yeah.
know. It's Jeffrey. I don't know. He was not so convinced yet. He's been doing already 100,000 motos already on the Honda. What we've seen. No, but yeah, it's just a preseason race. So a few weeks to go. This weekend is Roczen Park coming, another big sand race. Yeah, and then first GP is I think second weekend of March, so still some weeks to go.
Yeah, I was surprised that in those conditions, kind of wet, sand, Mantova, we've seen Jeffrey when he won the World Championship there and Motocross of Nations in 2021. He just seemed like he was simply better than everybody in those conditions on that particular racetrack. And this weekend, I know it's early. It's only the preseason. No pressure. He's not all the way prepared yet. He just didn't seem to have an edge over anyone. Like Tim seemed to be just as good. And they weren't even really winning the race. So I don't know. I was a little underwhelmed with Jeffrey. Honestly, I thought in those conditions he would be a little bit better, but I was surprised at how good Tim was already on the Yamaha. I thought in those conditions, because he's so proficient in hard packed, slippery conditions. He has such good feel for low traction. But in the mud like that, mud and sand, I didn't know how it would go. I thought maybe he would just kind of take it easy, but he was better than I expected. So maybe that's a good sign for Tim.
Yeah, no, sure. Tim, he looked steady. Yeah, he looked quite strong. But we have to see and compare it with Lucas Koenig. He's actually the one who kind of set the pace last year in most of the GP. So he will be the main reference, to everybody, my opinion. But first impression from Tim is good. I think Jeffrey, you can say, yeah, it's on a new bike, but for Tim is the same. I think Jeffrey's been the one who's putting in most of the riding already from all of the guys. That's how we know him. So, but we've seen the effect with Jorge going to Kawasaki. That didn't work out. This can also be a possibility with Jeffrey. He's been so all his career on a KTM. Now jumping on a complete different bike, a complete different chassis, works differently. It can go good or it can go also bad. It's a 50-50 chance. But we'll see. We'll see end of the year. Still long.
Big change to go from the chassis he's been on his entire career to the Honda, which is a little bit, maybe a little bit less stable. The riders in the US use kind of the word twitchy just because it feels a little bit busy compared to some of the other chassis. So yeah, it'll be interesting to watch to see how he adapts to it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's going to be great. We got to ask quickly, mate, how's Liam going heading into the new season? He's had some rotten luck with injuries the last couple, but it must be tough for you seeing him go through all that he's gone through, mate. But he's happy with the team and all's going to plan to start the season.
Yeah, so far so good. Yeah, he's been going through some difficult years, but yeah, he's getting ready for the new season. He's really happy with the Nestan team. It was a good move for him last year to go there. And this year, the preparation has been so far going good. He's in Spain already for a couple of weeks, riding a lot around red sand and doing his physical program. And I once in a while speak with him on the phone, and yeah, he looks happy. He looks relaxed. They've done some testing last week, suspension, EFI, and he said they made some really good steps, small steps, and now basically he's just putting in laps and doing sprint laps and long motos and a variety of trainings. And then probably he will do the race in Europe on the 1st of March. It's a big international. And that's the only pre-season race that he will do. Yeah, and then he heads off to Argentina.
Well, it's going to be exciting. JT, you reckon he should be a contender considered as one? You got Langenfeld's obviously the reigning champion. There's a couple of guys vacated that class, so why not he be aiming for the championship, you reckon, JT?
Yeah, I think so. I think this is one of the best setups I think he's had and will have. You just look at the way the kind of the field has arranged around him. Kai exits the class. I mean, this is what you dream of. This is, I think, nothing is assured. He's going to have to execute, but I love the way it looks for Liam this year.
Yeah, fingers crossed, mate.
Yeah,
All goes to plan.
yeah. I also think he can be a title contender. I think, yeah, last year he had a really great start. Coming back from his neck injury, just was a short period on the bike, but he won the second GP in Spain. Okay, it was muddy. Had the red plate for 2 rounds, which was, yeah, was some nice highlights. But then after he got a bit of a struggle, another injury, and the final of the year was also difficult. But he regrouped, and yeah, he looks good. He looks better. He looks stronger in his head. He's been working on his weak points, and he knows them, what the weak points are, and he's been really working on them. So yeah, I think he can be in it. But for sure, there's hard competition. Yeah, from Langenfeld, Koenen, I think Valais, some young kids coming in. No, they're looking all good. So yeah, but he's got his experience and his age. So yeah, he should have some advantages.
Yeah, I think this
And
is the
we'll see.
time.
Yeah.
If he rides the way he did in Motocross of Nations, that kind of tenacity and the guys he was competing against, he's gonna have a hell of a year.
Yeah, you mentioned that, it was his first race on the 450, and he was looking out for that already last year or the year before when he got the injury. He could not go. But yeah, he looked extreme good. I mean, we have seen that in his riding style that he would be a really good 450 rider, but now we had the proof of it in the nation. So I was really happy for him to also to get a bit of the respect, after the nations to him, what he have shown and what his qualities are. And so I was happy for him to see that also happening.
Yeah, it was very impressive. I didn't have any expectation. I knew the Belgian team was maybe the youngest team and had kind of the highest upside, right? Like if you look at what their potential was, I thought no one's really talking about the Belgians, but I think they might be able to win this thing because if Lucas rides the way he was in, say, Australia, Sasha stays off the ground, and Liam puts in one of, like we've seen these riders that move up to the 450 and they have just a heroic performance. Ryan Dungey in 2009. There have been a lot of examples of this over the years. I thought they maybe had an outside chance to win where nobody was talking about them. I think that Liam did his part. Like Liam did exactly what I was looking for that kind of scenario to happen. Unfortunately, Sasha had his issues and, Lucas couldn't execute as well as he actually wanted to, what I thought he was capable of. But I think to me, we're all way off topic with Motocross Nations, but the Belgian team, they're going to win this thing very soon, the way that things are shaping up. If I was Australia, I would be the most concerned about the Belgians.
Yeah, I think so too. They should have been on the podium at least last year, but yeah, it's not. That's history now, and I look forward to the future, and let's hope they can do it this year. And for me, it would be already nice to see my boy on the podium. Doesn't matter which spot it is, I just want him to do good and stay healthy. I know how hard he works for it every day. He's very dedicated, more than I was at his age back then. But I stay now a bit on the side of it and watch him and try to support him more and more as a real dad, which is very hard for me to be a champion myself, and because I'm always very critical for him, and it's not always the right moment to be towards him so critical because he also knows his mistakes and all that. So, but it's a bit of a rendezvous I have with me and my dad in the past, which I have now with my son. It's a bit funny, but that's the way life goes in our family.
Yeah, but you deserve a ton of credit. I was watched from afar and you were so involved in his program. And, there's no champion has ever made it to that level without their family taking them every step of the way. Like that is just a fact of this sport. You're never going to make it without a family that got them all the way, right? And there was all these moments that no one was around, that weren't on camera, no one remembers but the family, but that and your efforts got him to this stage. So I'm sure that's something you're very proud of.
Yeah, we all are. So yeah, it's true.
Should be, yep.
It's absolutely awesome. Great conversation. And yeah, we look forward to another great weekend of racing. And just before we wrap up, any final thoughts, firstly, from you, JT, ahead of the weekend? It's going to be another awesome racing weekend for sure across the globe. Lots of things happening. And then obviously, Stefan, you can wrap up. I know you've got a cool story about TLD and one of your gin bottles, which is a really cool business you've got going. So we'll start with you, JT, then Stefan.
Yeah, I'm just excited. Seattle is, again, started off the show, so I'm going to end the show with the sun shining. It just doesn't happen here enough. And my flight was only 45 minutes. So I have a lot to be thankful for this weekend. And I just got to do a podcast with Stefan Everts. So this is a hell of a day we're having here on a Thursday.
I hope you guys liked it a bit. It's like I'm not used to do it, but anyhow, it was fun. It was really fun. Thanks for the invitation. But to wrap it up, I wanted to share this small story. I'm going to keep it short as possible. But Troy visited my house a couple of years ago when he came to the GP in Lommel. And we went to my house and looked at my bikes and my museum and motorcycles and stuff. And then I showed him my gin bottle. And I said, hey, Troy, maybe you can draw me a new bottle if you have some idea. And the next day already, I got this photo from Troy, and he made this drawing on a piece of paper, and it was so cool. And that kind of gives me the inspiration of making this bottle. So it's like a number one, and we finished it off, and I put the signature of Troy is here on the side. You don't really see it, but you feel it. So there's
That's awesome.
a lot of influence of Troy in this bottle. So I want to thank him for that. So thanks.
That's really cool.
That's awesome, mate. Great way to end the podcast with a cool story there, mate. And yeah, thanks again, both of you, for taking the time to join us on this one. We'll have to get you back on, Stefan, if you're keen, mate, to hear your insights, through Supercross and MXGP. It's all excellent. So cheers again. And obviously massive thank you to Fly Racing and Firepower for sponsoring this episode and supporting the website. So make sure you go check out them online and on socials to see why they're so highly regarded. Obviously, thanks again, lads. All the best for the weekend, and we look forward to catching up soon.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. I enjoyed it.
Thanks. Bye-bye.